Part of what we should learn about parenting is the need for constant affirmation in the children which are just miniature versions of us and our spouse reproduced on the earth. If you're going to reproduce a miniature version of yourself, it's probably a pretty good idea to affirm it, because you sure would like to be affirmed. You sure would like to hear words that encourage you to go be the very best version you can be in the world. Everywhere Jesus turns, he hears the affirming words of his Father. Wherever Jesus doesn't hear his Father, Jesus doesn't move, which is a really good tip for us. So if Dad says do it, Jesus does it. If Dad says nothing, Jesus does nothing. And I love to watch that happen in the Gospels, because sometimes the Father gives some pretty strange instructions. Spit on the ground, stick your finger in it, swirl it around. When you've got a nice paste, put it on this guy's eyelids. And then don't wipe it off. Don't finish the healing. Send him to the pool to take a face bath and tell him he can have it when he gets there. And then you leave it alone. I would chase the guy to Siloam, by the way. Wouldn't you? I mean, I would chase him to make sure. Jesus doesn't have to chase him. He so trusts his Father to go, okay, if mud paste is the way it's going to work today, let's do that. And then just follow the voice of the Spirit. And that's just listening to Dad, watching how Dad does it. How is that an affirmation? Because every time he did it and there was a result, it was an affirmation that he was the beloved Son. So he kept having these affirmations from his Father. He kept hearing the voice of his Father to say, you are mine, you are mine. You're doing what I've instructed you to do. So Jesus takes his disciples. We're going to Mark chapter 9. I want to read beginning in verse 2. I want to read, just try to read straight through the story. I have an awfully bad habit of stopping and giving just little statements here and there. I tried to change that, but let's see what happens, all right? Now, after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up on a high mountain apart by themselves, and he was transfigured before them. His clothes became shining, exceedingly white, like snow, such as no launderer on earth can whiten them. That's an interesting little throw-in by Mark. None of the other Gospels say it quite like that. Elijah appeared to them with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And Peter answered and said to Jesus, I can't do it. Well, we got to stop right there for a second. I just want to point out, because it feels wrong to do it that way. Because we fly right past stuff that really should boggle our mind. But we know the story so well that we just jump past it like, well, I know what happens. But they didn't know what was coming. And they walk up a mountain. They've walked up 1,000 mountains with Jesus. And they walk up a mountain and Moses and Elijah show up. I mean, there's not even words to quantify that. How do they know it's Moses? How do they know it's Elijah? It's not as if they had a poster of Moses hanging in their bedroom when they were kids, or they walked into synagogue and went, here's what Elijah looked like, guys. They don't know, and yet there's an identification immediately, and we're going to get into that in a moment because of what Moses and Elijah represented. It's way bigger than just looking in their face. There's something about them that screamed Moses and Elijah when they walked up onto this mountain. And here's Jesus, who so transforms it's as if no launderer on earth, that interesting illustration, no launderer on earth could make his clothes look as white as he looks standing on that mountain. And there's Moses and Elijah standing with him. And Peter answered and said to Jesus, God bless Peter, who answers when there is no question. He's just like all of us. You want to know what's going on in the world? I can tell you. Well, nobody asked. But by all means, give us the answer. Peter's got the answer where there is no question. He answered and said to Jesus, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let's make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Why? You ever wondered why he said that? Verse 6 will tell you. Because he didn't know what to say. They were greatly afraid. So you don't know what to say, so you come up with the only thing you can think of, which is let's build 3 little houses. We'll put Moses in one house, Elijah in one house, and you in one house. And what that really says is, I don't want to lose this moment. Yeah. I don't want to take what I'm afraid is extremely temporary. I don't want to lose it. I want to make it as permanent as possible. How can we do that? We could build 3 little cabins. And we'll stick Moses in. Why three? I mean, you could just build one big house, put all three in a minute. But the reason he talks about three is he sees a distinction between these three characters, a distinction that he wants to hold on to, a permanence that he knows isn't permanent. He doesn't know what to say, but he says, man, it's great to be in this place. What if we could build three little houses and hold you and hold Moses and hold Elijah? And a cloud came over in verse 7 and overshadowed them. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, and this is that Bath call moment that we spoke about in the last sermon, that moment where there's an echo of heaven, where a voice speaks that doesn't have to be an audible voice from heaven, but it's audible enough in the ears and the hearts of the listener. And that's what's important in the text, because there's a unity of what they all hear. They don't get to the end and all heard different things. And so there's an awareness that a voice speaks to them out of that cloud and says, this is my beloved Son, hear him, which, as you know, is pretty close to exactly what the Father said when Jesus comes out of the waters of Jordan. What did he say there? This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And now at Transfiguration, this is my beloved Son, hear him. Suddenly, when they had looked around, they saw no one anymore, but only Jesus with themselves. We'll read a little bit more of this a little bit later. I want to stop at this point in the story and deal with what I think might have been a little easier for them to deal with than it is for us to deal with.